Hi, I'm Gemma Montgomery and welcome to the Excel with Ease podcast, bringing together service-based business owners in the aesthetic, beauty, medical health and wellness sector. Here we discuss different topics that will help you grow your business with ease while supporting your ultimate life vision. Hi there, welcome back to this week's podcast episode. My name is Gemma Montgomery and I'm speaking to you from the North York Moors on this beautiful sunny dog walk. If this is your first time listening, I've been an aesthetic nurse for coming up to 17 years now, running my own private practice in the north of England, and I've been a nurse since the year 2000, so 26 years. So before I get going, I want to just say thank you to those that reached out to me on the back of the podcast episode about it not being the business that's the problem, it's your mind. I think that must have really kind of touched something within a lot of people. And I guess that's what I want these podcasts to do, really, to be able to help you introspect, maybe have a little think about why you do certain things that you do, reflect on the internal software that's often operating subconsciously in the background, affecting every decision we do or don't make. So one of the questions from somebody that reached out was, I really love the podcast episode. I can completely identify with it. I can really relate to a lot of the things that you're saying. And I know that it's my own internal old belief patterns, experiences, fear, basically, that's holding me back. So now that I know these things, how can I start to heal? How can I start to move through the very things that I've identified so far that might be affecting this programming that I'm currently running? So experiences from the past that have shaped the personality, which is your ego, which you've developed up to this present day. So it's a bit difficult to kind of cover everything in a half an hour podcast episode. And it's not like I, for instance, have done all the work and I've got all the answers. I'm through the other side. And now it's like, right, okay, this is the magic trick. This is the magic one. This is how you do it. Because I believe it's kind of a lifelong process. And just when you think you've got it, then you realise that, okay, yeah, there's more to unravel, there's deeper layers to go, which I guess is what keeps life interesting, really. But I can obviously pass on a lot of wisdom that I've experienced, both in business and in life, that hopefully I can help to pass on to you to make some difference. Because, as I say, it's going to be lifelong, is this work. But try not to look at it as work. We all kind of ban that term around, don't we? It's just awareness. It's realising who you are, your energy, your consciousness, and all these experiences that you've had from birth, whether it's problems with friendships, you were bullied, whether you had issues with parents, rejection, life events, death, grief, basically events that shake us and that make us question our worth, really. And I think we don't realise, especially when we're younger, that these things are making us kind of question who we kind of inherently are. But when we internalise all these experiences, whichever way we take them on, they all fracture us away from our soul and they make us kind of seek validation externally. So we move away from our centre, we move away from our internal, and we start to look outside of ourselves for validation to prove that we're lovable, prove that we're worthy, prove that we've got what it takes. This is just an observation. It's not, I'm not going to sort of pull out research papers, but just in the environment that I grew up in and the people that I know, I can see definitely a correlation with people that have had issues with absent parents, parents that were unable to express maybe love to them, feelings of being rejected by parents. These people are often shaped to become very driven and do actually end up being quite successful. Again, it's just an observation. It's the things I've witnessed within my reality. It might be completely different in yours, but often the energy that those people are carrying is the energy of having to prove something externally, prove that they can be successful, to validate themselves, so that when they've achieved things that they want to achieve, then it'll give them a sense of feeling lovable, feeling self-worth. But what it leads to is like a constant striving. So while they might reach success in material terms, it often comes at the price of depletion, comes at the price of burnout, comes at the price of sometimes resentment, all the lack kind of feelings, not the abundant, full feelings. What I'm trying to say is that's just a really small example. These experiences that we internalize and when we start to then seek approval outside of ourselves causes a disconnection. So the key thing really is to start to make a good connection with yourself. So you might find that you're very much head living, in your head all the time, wanting to know the outcomes of things, how things are going to go, constantly problem solving, things going around in your head. So you might be struggling to sleep and rest the body properly. But essentially, we want to be trying to kind of move out of the head and into soul. So if you think of head as ego, and don't get me wrong, we all need ego. We all need like a personality to move through this world. You're not going to turn up and do your Sainsbury's shop naked, or I don't know. That's just a really daft example, but you do need some kind of personality and ego to move through the world, but you need to recognize what's truly you and what's truly not, and start to move away from head and into heart and into soul. Head's useful, mind is useful for driving, when you're crossing a road, to keep you out of danger, all the logical things, but we often live in the head too much. And when we're in that place for too long, this is when we kind of let fear take over, fear take control, fear run the show on all the decisions that we're making. So you don't need to kind of logically think, all right, okay, now, like micromanage yourself internally. I'm in head, I need to move to soul. I'm in head, I need to move to soul. You need to just kind of loosen the grip, just soften the body, begin to relax and begin to let go, and close your eyes if you want to, and just really begin to focus on the breath. Now you might be listening and thinking, oh God, I've heard all this before. Right, okay then, yeah, that's as simple as it is, just focusing on breath. I know years ago I used to think, oh God, breath, what's that really going to do? But the changes to your nervous system, the way it can begin to regulate, the way you can make a really good connection with yourself, are pretty phenomenal when you really learn the power of the breath. The breath is your connection source. So if you think of yourself as consciousness, you're consciousness, but you've got a body with 5 senses to kind of move and experience all the good things that this world has to offer. But when we're in our head all the time, we're completely out of our body and out of being able to feel, touch, see, hear everything around us with our 5 senses. And the body can, when we're living in head too much, can begin to feel like a really unsafe place to be. I know for years I used to feel almost like it's hard to explain, but almost like I wasn't in it. I was trying to kind of jump out of it. It's very, very hard to explain, but the body often doesn't feel like a safe place to be. And we end up then moving up and living in our head most of the time. And I think society kind of molds us that way. So you think about how young kids are when they start school and they're sitting behind little desks and moving from a little boxy room to another little boxy room. As humans, that's not what we're made for. That we're not designed for that. We're designed to move. We're designed to be outside. We're designed to express. But society sort of, when it gets us in the education system, it begins to dull our literally squeezes your life force energy. Everything becomes very academic, and we start to live inside our mind. And I know it wasn't as bad when I was at school, or maybe it was just the school that I went to. But nowadays, there's so much sort of pressure on kids with exams and after school activities, and everybody's just taught to look outside of themselves and compare to other people. All right, okay, how well am I doing? What percentage did I get in this test, and what did so and so get? Okay, and kids start to sort of rank themselves, and with that comes how they begin to then judge their own perception of themselves and their own perception of self-worth. So it's really sneaky how it starts. It could be in the workplace, having performance reviews and somebody else's consciousness judging your ability. You've got to ask yourself, who made the rules? What are these rules that we're all trying to follow and attain? I just believe that we're all born whole and complete, literally whole and complete. And it's the experiences that we have as we move our way through the world that fracture us away more from who we are and our true essence and our soul. And our only job is to recognise that and come back to our true essence. So if someone's labelling you neurodivergent, or you've labelled yourself as ADHD, start to even look at that. Start to think, well, okay, what skills come with this personality type, this behavioural type that I'm supposed to be carrying around? Because there's some real kind of gifts with that kind of personality. This is how ideas are created, a curious mind, how things come to life, the ability to be able to really hyper-focus in on one thing to get that job done. The problem isn't you and the way that you're designed. The problem is the external, again, reality of all these other things and all these other distractions that society tells you should be doing. I know I'm going off on tangents here, but what I'm saying is we taught to kind of look for the negatives and I shouldn't be this way, I should be this way. But who? Against like where do these, who sets the benchmark? Like who makes the rules? For me, the only person that makes the rules is the creator. And you want to really use those natural gifts to your ability. Think of the world. How would we have the artists? How would we have the musicians? Things that are so essential to life. I went to a gig at the weekend, but I like to observe and I looked around and all I could see was smiley, happy faces. I could see movement, I could see expression, I could see life force just running through people. Take me into a classroom where everyone's sat behind a little desk and the energy will just feel completely different. But it takes a certain type of personality to be able to create music, to be a musician, to paint a beautiful piece of art. And it also takes a real different personality, bringing something else to the world that maybe the person that's labelled ADHD isn't. But together, like they both work in absolute synergy. So stop letting the external, the world, tell you that like you're flawed in some kind of way. Your only relationship that you need to focus on is the relationship with yourself and the relationship with the creator, whatever word you want to use. Society and the world telling you these ideals and these expectations and we all should act a certain way, you know, like we've all got different fingerprints. Think of all the billions of people in the world. No two fingerprints are the same. It's just questioning, it's being curious, it's starting to kind of drop what the outside world expects of you and starting to make a really good connection with yourself. And the way that you do that is what I spoke about on other podcast episodes is you allow yourself time, like without all these distractions, all these things that are designed to tell you who you should be, tell you why you're not good enough, this weird like ideal that you need to be striving for. It's like, no, actually, I'm going back in nature. I'm remembering that that's what I am. I'm part of nature. But when I'm in nature, I'm really going to try and drop out of my head and I'm going to get into my body. Again, for me, music. I listen to music so much whilst I'm walking. I know it's great to listen to the sound of the birds and all this kind of stuff, which I do, but that's my time to listen to my music because for me, music, it takes me out of my head and it lets me feel. It helps me kind of drop into my body and not be in my head so much of the time. But that's my tool. You know, somebody else might have something different. They might go for a run, but essentially it's ways to kind of drop out of the mind and into the body and tuning into yourself, tuning into your body. Okay, where am I holding myself rigid where I don't need to be holding myself rigid? And it's not until you slow down and you begin to feel, it's about feeling, like allowing yourself to feel and go internal and really sort of start connecting to your breath. So a big deep breath in through the nose, hold for a couple of seconds, really like long breath out, making that out breath longer, which helps bring your heart rate down even further. Allowing yourself that time to do that. And that doesn't have to be so rigid and penciled in. You can do it any time of the day. I can do it sometimes in between clients, patients, whatever words you want to use. And I'm just going to soften my body, re-regulate myself. I'm going to breathe, just soften, like soften, soften, soften. There's like so much strength in softness. And then you begin to notice the energy that you're in. I know I've talked about masculine and feminine energy. I'm not going to get into that too much at the moment, but it's essentially, am I in an energy where I'm pushing out? Or am I in an energy where I'm bringing that energy right back to me? Am I in an energy of like seeking like external validation all the time, people pleasing? Am I worried about what this next client's going to think when she comes in? Or am I bringing that energy like right back inside, right back to me? So that's first and foremost. And I've gone the long way around of saying that because what am I on 23 minutes now? But you cannot make a good connection with others unless you have a really good connection with yourself. And once you begin to have a good connection with yourself, then the outside world begins to transform because you're allowing yourself to feel. So you feel into the energy, you feel when someone's presence is a depleting energy, a draining energy. And you can feel when somebody else is like adding to your energy, making you feel expansive. So it's all like an internal thing, but the external reality is around us. There's no getting away from that. But it's making sure that you just take responsibility for you and your insides and your feelings alone, and letting yourself come out of head and dropping into your body and allowing yourself to feel, allowing yourself to slow down, allowing yourself to soften, and allowing yourself to breathe. And again, you might be listening and thinking, that cannot be it. It cannot be as simple as that. But again, that's another human thing. We want to really like overcomplicate everything. I know when I started my role as a trainer, I'm about simplicity, and I think the people that I train love that. So it's like, right, let's not overcomplicate this. How do we get to that end point that we want to get to as simply as possible? Do we need to really overcomplicate it with a lot of different details and steps that don't really matter? So for me, I don't care how somebody holds the syringe when they're injecting. I couldn't give a shit about it really. What I care about is it going in at the right depth, into the right plane, the right amount, at the right angle? That's all I need to know. I don't care whether they're holding the thumb around it a certain way or the finger around it a certain way. Sometimes if I feel they're struggling, I might say, have you thought I hold it a little bit like this way because I struggled with it? And they're like, oh yeah, okay, I never really thought of that. But I don't micromanage every single step. So it's about really simplifying things and dropping the details that don't really matter, that are making you expend like a lot of energy. So yeah, so breathing, softening, really tuning in and feeling into where you're holding tension in the body, and starting to kind of breathe in to those areas helps you again get awareness of, right, okay, what's going on with the body? Because the body and the mind is it's one system. So you can guarantee if you're holding rigidity and tension in the body, you're holding rigidity and tension in your mind. And vice versa. If you're holding it in your mind, you'll be holding it in your body, and it's like there's just one big loop. So the easiest way to access the mind is through the body, not the other way around. So if you struggle with meditation and things like that, I get that. I totally understand that. So utilize the body. Do the body first. Get out, move, do some yoga, do some Pilates if that's your thing. Just move the body. Get the energy moving through the body. And then when you come to sit, when you come to feel, and you come to breathe, dead simple with your eyes closed, you've already got a little bit less tension running through your body. You've already got that energy moving, that stagnancy. We hold emotions within our body. Life needs to flow. Again, this is why I really don't like kids sat behind a desk for 7 or 8 hours a day, because they're in the head all the time. They're not in the body. But alongside that, they've got all these things going on at school and relationships and blah, blah, blah. And life isn't able to flow. You need to first and foremost make a really good connection with yourself. Only when you've got that do you know when you're getting pulled off centre. Only when you've got that do you know when you're doing things that might be feeling quite depleting, that are not lighting you up. Once you make a good connection with yourself and tune into yourself, then you don't want to take action that doesn't feel aligned, because it just doesn't bloody feel good. So let's take it back to your business. You know, if you're constantly bending over backwards to people working the hours that you really don't want to work inside, where you're giving freebies away, when you have a really good connection with yourself, you'll feel into that, how different that energy feels. You won't want to do it anymore. You'll start to take different steps. You'll start to take different action, because the other action will start to feel unbearable. Certain relationships might start to feel physically like unbearable to your body, because they're constantly having to make you regulate, they're constantly having to make you come back to yourself, and you're ultimately responsible for your energy. That other person isn't. So there comes a time where it's like, right, okay, I might need to just start creating a little distance now. But it is always the energy. It's always internal first. It's allowing yourself to feel, coming out of the head, dropping into the body, reconnecting with your breath, that starts to then influence all the other decisions that you make. But awareness of the old thought patterns, the old beliefs that you're running in the background is the ultimate key to helping you like liberate yourself and come back to you and come back to your true essence. So when we've got a good connection with ourselves, then it's embodiment. You're beginning to really embody who you are. And people can feel that. You know, when you walk into a room, you can see the difference with those people that are really comfortable in their body, in their skin, really embodied, to those that are looking around all the time and seeking external validation, those that look really uncomfortable within themselves, those that are taking actions based on the external, other people's perceptions, other people's views, other people's thought processes, rather than making it from an embodied decision, an action that feels good for them inside their body, helps them expand, not contract. But you'll never get to that place unless you allow yourself to feel, allow yourself to come in and allow yourself to feel the energy that you're holding. If you're discounting all the time or doing things to make somebody else like you, to make somebody else happy, that will really, really start to not feel good, and you'll start to get annoyed with yourself. But essentially, when you have a good connection with yourself, when you really embody who you are without any apologies, where you're not seeking external validation, where you're choosing you're not self-sacrificial. Don't get me started on that. That's just another people pleasing. You're conditioned to believe that it's selfish to choose you. But the ironic thing is, it's anything but, because when you know who you are, when you're making decisions for you, not on what other people expect of you, it's empowering. You feel good. That feel-good energy then ripples into the rest of the world, and you allow other people to do the same. And when you do that and you come out of this shitty, self-sacrificial energy that you're doing because you believe it makes you a really good person, when really it's just fear of judgment and fear of what other people think about you. When you really start to embody and make decisions truly from you and who you are, you give other people permission to do the same. And I'll just give you a quick example before I go on how this applies in, within my business. So when you come to me for a treatment, I don't act. My personality, it's who I am. I'm not any different with that customer that comes through the door than I am when I go into the kitchen and I see the girls at work, than I am when I come home. Don't get me wrong, I know I've got to be a bit professional in that I've got to explain things and do things properly. I completely get that. But I'm quite open. I am who I am. And I can see by being like that, my customers instantly, they drop out of the head, they go into the body, the shoulders soften, and they realise, all right, okay, I don't have to act like a certain way that's not who I am. I can be who I truly am. And then that client, that customer, that patient, whatever term you want to use, is able to communicate a lot more clearly with you. They're able to tell you what they're looking for. The lines of communication are just a lot more relaxed, a lot more clear. You're able to do your job more effectively because you feel calm, you feel good. Whereas if you're all tense and they're all tense, and then you pick up the needle and you're like, oh my God, I hope they like it. And it's just, you're trying to just meet approval all the time. You just embody, be who you are. And that gives that person that comes through the door permission to do and be exactly the same. And I love that. So when you're doing these things, this is serving the world more, not the self-sacrificial energy. You're serving the world more because you're letting other people have permission to just be exactly who they are. So this is not something that's just going to change overnight. It's a way of being. It becomes just like a way of life to know when you're operating outside of yourself or when you're operating inside of yourself. And when you're doing things because you're choosing you're choosing your energy above somebody else's wants, somebody else's needs. You deliver a better service, and overall, you just have a more fulfilled life. So I am going to make my way back to the car now. So I hope that helps. And keep reaching out. I love it when people reach out and they tell me things and tell me what they might need help with and what they're struggling with. And things are changing within the training now. So I'm going to be setting up memberships to help more people. There's going to be lots of new things coming. So keep your eyes peeled. But ultimately, be you, be who you are. Let that lovely you shine in business and in life, and just watch how everything begins to thrive. You take care.
For listening to this episode. I hope you discovered some useful tips and takeaways. Don't forget to please rate, review and subscribe, and as always, pass on to a friend who you think will find this podcast super useful.